Hello and welcome. So, episode 2 of Mammals is about the new wild. So, this is basically any habitat that has been created by or has been significantly impacted by humans, which is basically the vast majority of the planet. So, we open up in Chile where we see sea lions. So, these big bull sea lions, they're quite intimidating, are just roaming around the fish markets getting fish. They seem to have a pretty easy life. That is until they are attacked by dogs. So feral dogs are abundant in Chile and in most places where humans have quite a heavy presence. So dogs are just attacking them all the time. It doesn't look like a fair fight, to be honest. The dogs are significantly smaller than the sea lions. Like, I would still rather be on the sea lion side. However, the sea lions, they don't really know how to deal with these dogs, so they're just getting pushed into the water. However, there are people that still help them. There's people out there, that gather fish and then throw the fish out into the water for them. So they still have a pretty alright deal, to be fair. I find it quite strange that this episode is number 2. Normally the episode that focuses on the human impacts would be the last one, but I think it's kind of refreshing to have it here. I imagine whatever episode of the series ends on will feel like a fitting conclusion to the series, as they tend to with these programs. So yeah, I think it's fine that it's here. Next we go to the cities. So we go to Singapore, which we've seen in Planet Earth 2 is one of the cities that's kind of pioneering more kind of wildlife friendly city living. And here we see otters. So otters, obviously, these are Asian short-clawed otters, which are one of the more social species. They're quite, adorable. And we see basically this family, they're patrolling the streets. It's quite weird seeing otters in the city just roaming the streets and no one's really bothering. But this one otter gets separated when they're crossing the road and has to find them. They do a quite a good job of showing you the otters playing and then that otter being where they were and then obviously just being a few steps behind them. And it's quite cool. It does a good job of showing you how even in this city, which we all kind of think of Singapore as being this really wildlife friendly city, it's still a city and the same issues are there. Like the otters can't hear each other, they can't smell each other because they're just drowned out by everything else in this city. So they basically have to wait till morning to find the other otters again. I didn't have any doubt that the otter wouldn't find it. They're too cute to be shown to actually suffer. So I think I I knew the otters were going to get back to the rest of the family. It's still cool to see. Then we go to Zimbabwe, where we see elephants. Elephants are among the animals that have the most conflict with humans. The two don't really mix very well together. We see elephants basically roaming through this town and gathering food. It's not really clear how much damage they're doing, but it's more just showing that they're getting harassed and they're getting stuck there. The males actually using the taps, getting the water at the taps was quite good. We've seen elephant and human conflict before, and most recently in Planet Earth 3, which I think did a really good job of it. It's not one of the strongest parts of the episode for me, but it's still pretty good. Then we see pigtailed macaques in palm oil plantations. So palm oil plantations are notorious for being horrendous. We all know that they're destroying the rainforests, all this stuff. But it's interesting to see these macaques have adapted to deal with them. They've started hunting rats that live in the trees, which is really cool. Again, it shows you just how adaptable these animals are. And again, I think that what's good about this episode it's not just a good doom and gloom episode. It's not just showing you how horrendous things are for animals. It is very much focused on adaptability, showing you how adaptable mammals are, which I think seems to be the theme from the first 2 episodes. And I think that's great. I think we've seen the environmental stuff a lot, and I think that while it has a place, it's nice to focus on a different aspect of the natural world. And I think this series is doing a really good job of that. And then we see hippos. The hippos in this pool, it's somewhere in Africa. It's some national park where the river's been diverted to irrigate for farming. And the hippos are just stuck in these little pools. And this one male hippo, he's just fighting with everyone. We have seen hippos fighting before. It is one of the more iconic kind of shots. When you think of hippos in these programs, they're always fighting. They don't really do anything else. But while I think it is a sequence we've seen before, we haven't seen it for a while. I can't remember the last time I saw a hippo fight sequence. It might have been in Nature's Great Events, which was in 2009. So I think there's room to revisit it. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Then we move on to this minefield in the Syrian and Israel border, where we see wolves. Wolves are persecuted wherever they encounter humans. They are probably one of the more vilified animals in nature. But it's nice to see that they're hanging on here in this really weird location. The minefield's not exactly a hospitable place, but it's not hospitable for people, and hence why the wolves are able to thrive there. They can't actually hunt there. They see them leaving the minefield to gather food outside. A lot of this footage was captured using camera traps and drones. There wasn't as much on the ground stuff, which is understandable because they're filming in a minefield. It was more of an interesting sequence. We don't actually see the wolves catch anything, but it was a cool part of the episode. I still thought it was one of the more unexpected parts. I didn't really know that they did that. So I didn't really expect to see it here. So I thought it was pretty cool. Then we see bison. So bison are an animal that we kind of know have been just absolutely decimated across America when Europeans first settled in North America. They basically wiped them out, and so it's a really famous success story. And we kind of talk a bit about that here, but then we also talk about the actual reintroduction process. They are wild, but they are ultimately managed heavily. It seems I didn't. It's not something I've ever seen before, and it's probably something I've never even thought about. We've seen bison on the plains before, but it does make sense that there isn't. The plains aren't exactly vast anymore. There is a lot of cities in America, so it would stand to reason that bison do need to be kind of managed quite heavily. So it was interesting seeing that. I didn't really know about that, but I think it was good to see, especially when the sequence starts with showing you how wild the bison are, to then show you them getting rounded up by these essentially cowboys. It was an interesting sequence and something I didn't really, well, probably could have guessed it. I don't think I was as aware of it, and I don't think many people probably think about it either. And after that, we see cheetahs. So we see cheetahs hunting in Africa, and we've seen a lot of cheetah hunts, but this isn't really about the hunt. It's about how disturbed the cheetahs get by people on safari. I think tourism is obviously, we all know people go to Africa for safaris, and it's a really cool thing to do. But I think they did a really good job of talking about the detrimental effects that can have on the wildlife, particularly big predators like cheetahs, where if they get disturbed, if there's a lot of cars around, they are going to ultimately abandon their kills, and that obviously leads to higher mortality rates. There's a lot of cubs that aren't making it. I think this episode does a really good job of showing you that. I have seen that before. In Africa, you do tend to find that a lot of, not a lot, but certainly some safari companies maybe don't adhere to the guidance of obviously steering clear of animals. I've seen other animals getting disturbed quite a bit by vehicle traffic, and I think yeah, so it's quite good that they talk about that, because I think we tend to view wildlife tourism as a great thing, and while it is good, it is essential for protecting a lot of places. It can have a negative effect when it's not done right, and you see that the world over, not just in Africa and all over the place. There's a lot of examples of places around the world where tourism is having a detrimental effect on the natural world. And the sort of last main bit we see are blue whales. We see blue whales, and we talk about these people that are basically tagging them. We see them going out to tag the blue whales, and it is quite cool. It's a little bit reminiscent of David Attenborough's sequence in Life of Mammals. These GPSs will show every time that the blue whale surfaces, so we can track their movements. And we can see in these areas of heavy boat traffic that they're just confused. They're just going round in a circle, which is really interesting. And I think it's really important to talk about it, because these animals will have massive ranges. I mean, whales migrate right the way around the world. So the fact that it's going round in a circle is quite shocking, I think. So that was a really good sequence. I think a really good way to end the episode, I think. The diary sequence, it was about the people filming the wolves. Because a lot of it was done on camera traps and drones, there isn't as much interaction with the wolves themselves. But it was interesting, the guy that basically found these wolves and who's just a carpenter and just goes out finding them. It was kind of similar to the guy with the fennec fox. It just shows you that normal people are ultimately essential to these things, and essential to understanding the natural world. We don't necessarily, not everything comes from scientists and scientific papers. A lot of it is just guys on the ground that happen to live in the area. So that was really cool. So yeah, this episode was pretty good. I really liked it. I think I might have preferred the dark episode more, but this was still a really good episode. I think the highlight from me, what was the highlight? The highlight is maybe the cheetahs. The cheetah sequence, I think, was a very good. I think because I've seen stuff like that out there in the real world. I think when you're seeing stuff you've seen in real life on the telly, it hits home a bit more. But no, I think the whole stuff in the episode, the sea lions were really good as well. I think the monkeys catching the rats. Everything was good. Again, similar to last week, there wasn't a weak part in the episode for me. The elephants, we've seen stuff like that before, but that was still really good, so I don't have a problem there. So yeah, what were your highlights of the episode? Next week is the water episode, I think. So a lot of whales and dolphins, I would think. I will be reviewing that next week, and yeah, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe as ever, or don't if you don't want to. That's perfectly fine. And yeah, see you then, and goodbye.